Hello everybody, it's Big Al with some more content for Lord of the Rings Rise to War. So, on this video I am going to do, I guess you want to call it a troop usefulness guide when it pertains to battle. I hate the term tier list because I am all about making the most out of what you got. And when it comes to that and your commanders, different units are going to be better. So, I'm going to show up a usefulness chart that I made, and I'm going to talk about some of the uses of some of the troops and also scenarios that they're used. So here's the chart that I made, and it doesn't have every unit on it, but it does have the majority of them. So when you're talking about what are the best units, you have to think about the commanders you're using, how much they cost to make, how long they take to conscript, what works best with your armies. So I'm going to talk about a few. Okay, one of the biggest meta units right now is the war chariots, and there's a few reasons for that. They're a large unit, but they're also classed a mounted unit. So with some commanders, they have buffs for mounted units. They have a skill that causes bleed, so it's an extra instance of damage off of enemy white council. They're big, they're beefy. Okay, that's plain and said. Next you have fell beasts, and these are great in a lot of ways. They cause poison damage. They are fast. So your main uses for the fell beast, a lot of people will put them on, say, Sauron to get his speed up, because when initiative is calculated, it is the commander and the unit's combined initiative. They are good for bird bombs when you are trying to break an enemy fortress that's building, or things like that. And that also goes for eagles as well. But I put the fell beasts up just a little bit more because of their extra poison damage. So when it comes to fighting, they are a little bit better than the eagles. Excuse me. So now you got to come to a different category, and that is the taunting, protecting, provoking category. Okay, you mostly have your main three units for that are Great Beast, Swan Knights, and Mountain Trolls. So I have Great Beast in the good category. They are a notch above the Swan Knights and the Mountain Trolls. The Swan Knights and the Mountain Trolls only taunt or protect for the first 3 rounds, whereas Great Beasts provoke for normal attacks for all 10 rounds. They are also beefier. So, that being said, you're going to use those on your tanks when you're trying to steer damage away from your damage dealers. Same thing with the Swans and the Mountain Trolls. The Swans are another good one because they're medium units depending on your counter buffs. So then I come to Guardians, and I have the Guardians in the good tier above all other dwarves. The reason for that is cost and time of conscription. They have good defense, they have good hit points, they are a tier 3 unit. They cost so much cheaper than, say, Iron Warriors or Depth Defenders. I want to say they're a third or a quarter of the cost of either one of those units. Yes, those other units have a little bit higher stats, but not by much. So Guardians to me are the best melee unit because they're going to keep you in the fight longer. You can pump those things out all day long, and they're beefy enough to where they can take the hits. Next, Bow Knights I put in the good category, and the only reason I put them there is for their usefulness. A lot of people like Gil-galad. He evades 3 elf units, and he also buffs elf units in his army. So, most people using Gil as a tank, using Swan Knights is probably the biggest one that people use on Gil. You put the Bow Knights on your other 3 commanders. They're going to evade for the first 2 rounds, and then they're buffed for the first 5 rounds with defense and attack. So that's why I put them in the good tier, only because of their usefulness. If you are not running Gil, Bow Knights are just okay. They're elves. All elves are squishy. Plain and simple. Their defense isn't the best, their hit points aren't the best. So, now I'm going to go down to the usable tier. Cataphracts are another medium unit, and you can use those as beefy melee units, whether you want to run melee and ranged units, if you want to run taunt troops on your tank, melee on your support, and ranged on your damage dealers. That's fine too. Cataphracts are expensive, but they are usable as frontline medium units. We have half trolls. Half trolls are okay. They can get used. They are considered a medium unit. So that is another thing that puts them in the usable category, because it can get you buffs and still have a beefy unit. Okay, woes archers. Now, these are one that are going to be tested a lot over the next few weeks. There's been a lot of talk about them because they gain initiative in the first 4 rounds, I believe it is. So that could be a huge factor into making your army when you put the ranged units on your damage dealers. Ram Riders are a medium unit. They're dwarves, so they have some defense, they have some hit points. They're just okay, but it also depends on what you're running. If you want that medium buff, they are a good unit for that. You have Berserkers and Crushers next, and they are pretty much in the same category for me, as they are okay troops. All depends on what you're starting with, what you're running with. A lot of people will use Berserkers on, say, Sauron, because they are a little bit faster than most small units. They have a little bit of hit points, a little bit of defense. Okay? Crushers are cheap and they can be pumped out just like Guardians, but they are not as beefy as Guardians. A couple other ones I'd like to talk about. You have Seafarers. Seafarers, they are okay situational. They take reduced damage from commanders. But honestly, their hit points, their defense isn't the best. But some people will use them if they're using a tank or things like that, so they try to help with their losses. But a lot of people have been using them lately. March Wardens are the T4 elf unit. They are okay. They are expensive. They do high damage. They're immune to stun. It's another one that a lot of people will run on Gil-galad. But they are very expensive, and it's hard to keep them in your barracks if you are fighting a lot. So again, I hate the term tier list because there's too many variables that go into deciding what unit you're going to use. I'm going to skip down to the useless troops. And again, this list is about when it comes to fighting. Okay, Mumakils are just about the most useless troop in my opinion. They will damage your own units as well, unless you're using Black Serpent, who has this R4 skill that stops Mumakil from hitting allies. They are good with siege, but they're expensive. They're colossal units, so you get 2 hits with them. Same thing with Ents. They're good with siege. They're colossal units. You get 2 hits. But both are honestly just siege units. Nobody's going to really fight with colossal units because you're limited. You can put them and then you can move your army to, say, a crossing or something and stand on them. But there is ways to kill them very easily. Oathbreakers, Wraiths, Burrows, those are not used very often. Dunedain are used for extra siege, but for as fighting, no. Same thing with Alchemists. You will very rarely see them used for fighting. They are the best small unit when it comes to siege, but not for fighting. So a couple other notables that I put in the bad troops. So not many archers are going to make a good list. They can be usable. You know, sentinels are good for the fact that they evade one first instance of damage. They do okay damage, but they're very squishy. Morgul arbalists are another one that they're usable. Axe throwers are really not that good. I mean, they are dwarves. They have a little bit better defense and hit points than other ranged units in their class, but they're still not that good. But again, it comes down to what you need. Dale Watchmen have a buff for beasts and dragons, and also fighting on structure land. It's either structure land or crossings. So they're very situational. They're just their stats by themselves are not that good to be considered a good unit or a usable unit, in my opinion. Dunedain are another one. They do not have great hit points or defense. They are great against ranged units, but again, it's very situational. So when you're deciding the units, think about what you're going to be fighting most, if you can keep it in stock. Things like that. Borings. Borings I put in the bad troops, and when I put these in the rankings, I guess you can call them, I did not put them in any order. I just put them in the general category. But borings, well, some people I've heard try to use borings on, say, Frodo on your tank. They have a lot of hit points, okay damage, or okay defense, but I just don't see them as being a good tank unit. I think the time to conscript them is way too long for anything. So that's pretty much how I see units. And again, you got to decide for yourself what's your army using, what commanders are you using, what's going to keep you in the fight. So that's all I got on this video. So as always, make the most out of what you got.